to introduce George. I've met George only a few times previously, but before I go into his credentials, I'd just like to say a word about his character. George is one of the most learned people I know that is also this humble. I often look forward to learning not only from George's knowledge, but also from his character. George is a professor of apologetics at St. Athanasius Boarding Seminary in Texas, St. Paul Theological Seminary here in Canada, which is now affiliated to Trinity College at U of T, and St. Athanasius Theological Seminary in Nashville. He's a prominent speaker and lecturer in theology and apologetics and on various Christian TV programs. You'll find George all over YouTube. George travels extensively. He's a rising star in the church, and we're really fortunate to have him. Without any further ado,
thank you so much
welcome George.
For your kindness and love. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am honored and seriously honored to privileged to be with you. I see familiar faces. I know I've seen some of you before, but it's the pleasure is all mine and the honor is all mine. Thank you, Father John. It's always a pleasure to come and take your blessing, the blessing of your wonderful congregation and youth. So forgive me if I took a red eye from San Francisco, so forgive me if I stutter every now and then. I'm still collecting my brain cells. So the discussion we would like to have, and I want to call this a discussion, not a lecture, and hence the format, okay, provides for a good discussion and hopefully engaged conversation with one another. Why your worldview matters, or does it matter what you believe? Does it matter? Can you just be a good, kind person, go about doing your business, and you don't have to affiliate with anything. You don't have to be categorized as a Christian or a theist, a deist, a naturalist, a skeptic or an agnostic, whatever. Can you just go about doing your business reactively to circumstances around you in this world? Does it really matter what you believe? This is the question that we will collectively attempt to address and come to an answer, or an answer at the end of our discussion. Sounds good? Does it matter what you believe? Stay tuned. There's a word that I would like to define, because we will use this word quite often. The word worldview. Worldview. Any of you heard of the word worldview before? It replaced another word, another concept or phenomenon. Religion. Okay, worldview. Now, if you go, at least in where I come from, San Francisco, if you look at movies, for example, you want to look at ratings for various movies, you see the cast and the theme, the synopsis and all that, and there's a category for worldview. What's the worldview of this movie? What is what is it that this movie is about to tell me about life? So, what is a worldview? It's basically a lens through which you see the world, just as the term implies. How you view the world. You have a set of presuppositions that are ingrained in your mind, and with these presuppositions and philosophies, ideologies, you use these ideologies and philosophies to live your world. I have a 2.5 minutes, I think, or a 3-minute video clip that will give you an introduction, general introduction to the concept of worldviews. And then we'll talk about worldview categories and why does it matter to have a true worldview of reality, or an accurate worldview of reality. Why does it matter? Why bother? And these are the questions we'll attempt to address together. So let's begin with a quick video on an introduction to what's a worldview.
Worldview, as the word suggests, is how we look at the world around us.
without a worldview. The only question is it a good one or a bad one?
A worldview is the set of basic assumptions that help you make sense about reality. A worldview is like a lens through which you see things, and you're not really aware of the lens, you're only aware of the things you see.
So it becomes the glasses, the spectacles, the filter through which they're actually seeing life. And the whole universe and the world and human life is understood through that lens.
On the basis of that worldview, you make your momentary judgments in life. So everyone has a worldview. And I think it is the grid that frames the nature of reality for you in life.
Our thinking really does govern the way we act, the choices we make.
There are ideas that have consequences. And our culture is shaped, first of all, by distorted ideas that yield distorted lives.
And when we do not understand or know the truth claims of God, we take the truth claims of the world as if they're true. When we live according to the lies and the illusions of the world, then we suffer deeply.
God wants us to see the world the way He told us it is. Everything begins with an infinite personal God, and the whole universe and the world and human life is understood through that lens.
Whether we're talking about sociology, we're talking about anthropology, we're talking about science or history, law or politics, economics, it does not matter. You can trust that God has given to us the framework of truth from which we can stand upon and live.
That's the secret of freedom. That's the secret of humanness. That's the secret of fulfillment.
It is the trust that He really is who He says He is, and that His truth claims are really real. You can trust them with your very life and your very soul. I am convinced that that is exactly what truly transforms people, and you will find it to be one of the most glorious moments in your life.
That's a quick intro on what is a worldview. So to define it, textbook definition according to James Sire, his book The Universe Next Door, a worldview is a set of beliefs and presuppositions which we hold about the basic makeup of our world that ultimately guide and direct our behavior. Every single one of us in this room has a worldview, a lens through which you see the world. Our worldview determines our decisions, our goals, God bless you, what we think will make us happy, how we spend our money, how we treat others. Our daily lives are governed by our worldview. I want to ingrain that concept of it. What is, now that we know we all have a worldview, what is my personal worldview in life? So my question to you, what shapes your worldview? Or I call them the worldview shapers. What shapes your worldview? What do you think?
Church.
Church, absolutely. What else? Parents, family, for sure. Actually, the biggest one, biggest shaper of your worldview. Education. We mentioned all I have on the screen. What else? Academic arena. Friends, maybe? Friends? Anything else? One more?
Beliefs.
Work, employment, beliefs, church, I think, church beliefs.
Can we say hardships?
Hardships, I like the way you think. Yes, hardships may make you, but I think hardships, it's your presupposed worldview will help you navigate through hardships. But I don't think hardships will crystallize your worldview. Yeah. But I don't think it will shape your worldview. Okay? Media, that's it. That's what I was looking for. So you mentioned them all. Religion, family, academics, friends, and media. These are worldview shapers. Some are more, some shape more than others, or some are shaped by, let's say, family more than others, friends, school, and what have you more than others. But these are our worldview shapers. Now the question, why does it matter? That's the question we want to tackle. Why bother? Why do you think? Help me. Yes, sir.
That's how you process events.
Exactly. And very good. It affects how you process events. And then, why does that matter? And your reaction to these events. Perfect. So very good. Well said. As we heard in the video, ideas have consequences. That's the whole subject of study in philosophy. Ideas have consequences, but I'm not going to get too academic into it. But let me explain to you, this is the one thing I want to share with you. I want to kind of, if you want to go home with any point made, I think this is the one slide you want to focus on. We are made up of 3 faculties. You can call them 3 components or 3 entities, whatever you want to call them. What are they? Not body, soul, and spirit. But what are we made up of? I'll begin with the first one. Your mind, your intellect, your cognitions, your reason, your logic, all of that. Your mind. What else?
Feeling.
You're very good. So mind,
Heart.
heart. Very good. Okay, never mind. And the third one is the will. Okay, your mind, your will, and your heart. This is what you're made up of. You have a mind, you have a will, okay, your conduct, your lifestyle, your behavior, okay, and then you have a heart, your feelings, your sentiments, your emotions, your affection, all of that. So, with the mind, truth, or within the mind, truth resides. So the nourishment of your mind, for your mind to be nourished, you nourish it with what? Knowledge. Right? You nourish your mind with knowledge. But can I just say knowledge in general? I think we need to be specific. Knowledge of the truth. True knowledge should nourish your mind. When your mind is nourished with knowledge, what happens to your will? It will do that which is what? Good. So when your mind is nourished with truth, you will inevitably do with your will that which is good. When you do that which is good, what will happen with your heart? You will feel that which is what? Who said it? You said it.
Peace.
Very good. Peace, along with a lot of slew of other wonderful things. But I'm going to summarize them with this word beauty. Truth, goodness, and beauty. Any of you heard of these three ideals? If you studied philosophy, you have heard of these? Platonic? Very good. Very good. These are called the 3 transcendentals. Transcendentals. In other words, these are the 3 ideals. 3 virtues, if you will. Truth, goodness, and beauty. By the way, beauty is always, in this case, depending on if you study Plato or Aristotle, beauty is synonymous with joy. And when he said peace, well said, peace, joy, and beauty is inclusive of peace and joy. So you can interchange that with joy as well. So these 3 transcendentals, I think I have the definition for them here. Here they are. The transcendentals, truth, goodness, and beauty/joy. According to Aristotle, are properties that correspond to the 3 aspects of our being. Philosophical disciplines that study them are logic, studies your mind, your reason. Ethics studies your lifestyle, your conduct, your behavior. And aesthetics deals with your feelings and your emotions. I'm going to connect them now in one second. But I wanted to, before I connect them, I want to share with you this slide. Truth, goodness, and beauty. Truth resides in the mind, as I said. Goodness resides in the will. Beauty resides in the heart. And I'll get to the point, why does it matter to have an accurate worldview of life. This also corresponds to the ethos, logos, and pathos. Hopefully I'm not complicating things. I'm just trying to build to my point. Logos, as you all know, comes from which comes the word logic, has to do with your mind. Okay? And then ethos, from which we get ethics. She probably thought I was calling her. Ethics, your lifestyle or your behavior. Okay? And then pathos is what you feel in your heart, from which we get sympathetic, empathetic, feeling for someone, okay, being in the shoes or in someone else's shoes. So logos, ethos, and pathos, also called three transcendentals according to Plato. Aristotle and Plato, and if you study the history of philosophies and schools of thought, scholars and philosophers across the ages, you will see that they struggled with those three ideals: truth, goodness, and beauty. And they wanted to see, how can we come up with something or someone that would have those three ideals together? How can we achieve truth? How can we achieve goodness? How can we achieve beauty or joy? Okay? So, in layman's terms, thoughts will, to a large extent, determine your actions, and to a large extent, your actions will determine how you feel. What you know in your mind, to a large extent will influence what you willfully do with your will, and that, to a large extent, what you do will influence how you feel in your heart. So, knowledge, doing, feeling. Now, many of us feel, not many of us, some of us, not you guys, some, may go through periods of depression, anxiety. I feel down, I don't feel good. Well, you may go find a psychologist or a therapist or whatever, and pay a lot of money to help yourself feel better. And you can get all those, believe in yourself kind of therapy and all of that. But then you'll need to realize that this is dependent on what you're doing with your life. There's a direct correlation between how I feel and what I'm actually doing with my life. But then if you're not doing the right thing, do the right thing. You all know Peter Russell Peters, whatever his name is. I think it is. Do the right thing. Well, how do I do the right thing? I must know the true thing or the truth. So feed your mind, nourish your mind with that which is true. Then it will come easy for you to do that which is good. And then what will ensue after that, feeling of joy, beauty, peace, love, and all these wonderful things. Let me share with you some scriptural references from the Bible that actually confirm and validate what we're saying. Okay? In John chapter 13, verse 17, there's a beautiful verse that says, "If you know these things, happy are you if you do them." Do you see the three transcendentals here? It's in one verse. And this word, sometimes it's blessed, sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's filled with joy. Here's one verse that tells you that if you know these things with your mind, joy will be in your heart if you do them with your will. I'll give you one more verse. John 15:11. "These things I have spoken to you. I've said these words so that you may believe them. I've spoken these words so that you can understand them with your mind." Okay? Register them. Nourish your mind with these words, words of truth. "That your joy may be full in your heart. And this is my commandment, that you love one another." So you love with your will, because you have heard the spoken words of Jesus, and when you love when you love with your will, according to what you know with your mind, joy will be the resultant of your heart. I'll give you another verse, one last verse. Jesus in 1 Peter 1:8, Jesus Christ, whom you have not seen, you love. Love here is a function of what? First and foremost, mind, heart, or will? Your will. You don't love with your heart, you don't love with your mind, you love with your actions. It is most expressed by your actions. Of course, love resides in your heart and your mind and your entire being, true. But it's perfectly expressed by your will, by your actions, actions of love. So love here implies what you do according to these sentiments of love. So Jesus Christ, whom you have not seen, you love with your will. Though you do not see him, yet believing in your mind, you rejoice with your heart with joy inexpressible and full of glory. So the scriptures are there's a lot of verses in the scriptures that point to these three transcendentals: truth, goodness, and beauty. I like to summarize them and keep it simple, and I like to call them the three H's: head, heart, hand. One relates to the mind, intellect; head, heart, emotions, feelings; hand relates to your will. So I must know the truth in my mind to do what is right with my will, in order to feel and experience in my heart what is pleasant, joyful, and peaceful. Does that make sense to you? Okay? Any comments before we move forward? This is kind of the foundation for why, or the answer rather, for why your worldview matters. Comments? Questions? Yes? Yes, go ahead.
I agree with everything you're saying, but it's so hard to change your thoughts. It's easy to say it, but it's so hard to actually change what you believe for 10, 15 years.
I agree with you 100%.
I don't know if you're going to cover that.
I don't think we'll have time to cover that. That needs therapy. But no, I'm just kidding. No, but that's actually, I'm not kidding. There is therapy. I'm not saying therapy. You have to go to a psychologist and lay on a couch. But there's therapy to unlearn that which you learned, and you later realize it was false, or it was skewed, or twisted, or inaccurate. Yeah. Yes. All right. I want to share with you what Viktor Frankel, an Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, also he's a Holocaust survivor, pretty famous Holocaust survivor. This is what he said: "I am absolutely convinced that the gas chambers of Auschwitz were ultimately prepared not in some ministry or other in Berlin, but rather at the desks and in lecture halls of nihilistic scientists and philosophers." In other words, what you learn in the academic arena, academic settings, in universities, there's something about a professor that stands behind a podium and speaks with such credibility. There's something about that where you can just absorb, or maybe not in college, maybe in high school, absorb with almost no filter that this is credible, this is true. So whatever you learn in this academic setting becomes or shapes your worldview, and then leads you to do that which is in accordance to what you learn. All right, let's shift to transcendentals about God. Does he have truth, goodness, and beauty? Let's see. His words, God's words for Christians, it's the scriptures. They reveal his mind. You see the mind of God in his words. His laws reveal his will. He gives me commandments and says, don't do this and do that. That's the will of God. The word of God reveals his mind. The The laws of God reveal his will. The promises of God reveal his heart. I promise that if you do that, I'll give you this because I love you. And that is the heart of God revealed through his promises. The laws of the will of God is revealed through his laws. The mind of God is revealed through his words. We are created in God's image. He has a mind. He has a heart. He has a will. So do we. We have a mind, a heart, and a will that feeds off of his mind, his heart, and his will. These three aspects fulfill the needs of the three parts of our soul. And let me explain. His words fulfill my needs, or my mind's needs, and search for truth. I'm seeking the truth. Look at the will of God. Well, how can I see the will of God? It's revealed through his laws. Okay? His laws fulfill the will's search for goodness, and his promises fulfill the heart's search for joy. So this is the connection between God's transcendentals and my transcendentals. Let's not delve into this too much, because this could take us to take too much time from us. But let's go back to worldview categories. What I mean by that is worldview categories, the question you ask yourself that your worldview ought to answer. Number one, there's a theology category. What is God, or who is God? What are his attributes? Now, I'm assuming that we're non-religious. We don't ascribe to any religion. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, atheist. I was just talking to a woman earlier. You know, atheists, agnostics, they do have a belief system. They are believers in something because they have to answer the questions of life. Okay? So, theology is the first category. What is God? Does he exist? Does he not? And if he does exist, has he spoken? Who is he? What is he? What are his attributes? I shouldn't say what is he. I shouldn't assume it's he. It could be an it or a she or whatever. Okay. Number two, metaphysics has to do with the universe. Is the universe created? And what's the relationship between God, if he exists, and the universe? That's metaphysics. Epistemology, which is the theory of knowledge. How do you know what you know? Is truth relative or is truth absolute? So these are three categories. I have three more that are the worldview categories. Every worldview must address and answer these questions. Three more. Ethics. How do we determine what is right and what's wrong? If you're a Buddhist, you should be able to tell me that. If you're a Hindu, you should be. Christian, Muslim, Jew, whatever. Any religion you have, you ascribe to, you should be able to answer these 6 questions. Number 5, anthropology. What is the nature of man? Are we just made of matter? Do we have souls? Or are we only souls, not matter, material, immaterial? And lastly, eschatology. What happens when you die? Is there an afterlife? So these are 6 categories. Can we name them again? Theology, metaphysics, epistemology, and those 3. Ethics, anthropology, eschatology. These are the 6 worldview categories. Every worldview, as I said, needs to address these categories. What are the common worldviews that we are aware of? You tell me. I'm going to begin with one. Theism. The belief that God exists. A personal God exists. Give me some other worldviews.
Atheism.
Very good, thank you. That's very easy. Atheism, alpha in Greek means lack of or opposite of. When you say atypical, it is not typical. So A means lack of or opposite of. Theos means God. Theism, no God. Atheism, no God. What else? Any other isms? Very good. Agnosticism. You know what agnosticism means? The same thing. A means opposite of. Gnosticism comes from the root word gnosis. Gnosis in Greek means to know. That's why in Greek there's a G, gnosis, and in English there's a K, because we got it from Greek, that we don't pronounce, gno, but it's actually coming from Greek, gno. So, gnosis, or Gnosticism, means to know. Agnosticism means, I don't know. I don't know. When you ask an agnostic, does God exist? True agnostic. I don't know. And there are passive and aggressive. There's passive agnostics that say, I don't know if God exists. The aggressive agnostics say, I don't know, and you don't know, and no one knows. You see? So it's more general. Knowledge of God is unknown. You know what would you say to an agnostic that says, no one knows that God exists? Or no one knows the truth? What would you say? What would you answer an agnostic that says that?
How do you know that?
How do you know that? Because you must know that no one knows for you to say no one knows. Alright. Humanism. Anyone knows what that worldview is all about? Humanistic teachings, or humanism. Man is the measure of all things. That's the slogan of humanism. We, as a result of the Industrial Revolution, the Renaissance, and the what else in Western Europe? Anyways, we realize that we can accomplish and achieve things. We don't need God anymore. We can do it on our own. So we just put God to the side. We now become God. If you watch Star Wars, it's all about humanism. I am now God. We don't need a savior. We can save ourselves. Here's agnosticism. Naturalism. Anyone knows what that is? What this worldview is all about? Nature is all there is. We can explain anything in this world by this closed system called cosmos, or universe, nature. Skepticism. That's easy, as the term implies here. I'm a skeptic. I'm a skeptic means what? Means what? I doubt. I doubt that God exists. I'm skeptical. Okay? Existentialism. Interesting one. If you're an existentialist, what are you? Existentialism, hedonism kind of bleed on one another. Existentialism, this is existence. Let's eat and be married, or tomorrow we will die. Let's just enjoy be in the moment. Any of you heard of Deepak Chopra? You have? Live in the power of now. Let's live in the moment. If you watch Oprah Winfrey, also she does the same thing. Let's enjoy the moment. I'm not saying we should not enjoy the moment, but that's all there is. There's nothing beyond that. Existence precedes essence. You know what's interesting about existentialism, if you were to compare it to, let's say, Christianity? Existentialism says, what you do determines who you are. What you do determines who you are. Christianity says, who you are determines what you're capable of doing. You see, that's very short comparison between existentialism and Christianity. Pantheism. Pan in Greek means all. When you say pantokrator, almighty, or holder of all. Pantheism means what? Everything's God. Eastern mystics or Eastern philosophies, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, they all believe in pantheism. In pantheism, everything is God. We worship everything. So, there's so many worldviews. I just took some, but these can be categorized and summarized in three categories. Number one, theism. God made all. Number two, atheism. No God at all. Pantheism. God is all. Basically, these are the three worldviews that exist, and the three main categories. From these three main categories, you can come up with 50 different worldviews, 50 different schools of thought. You can call them religions, and so on and so forth. My question to you, can those three be right? Can all be right? Because now we live in a politically correct era. especially here in Canada. We thrive on the notion of tolerance and being politically correct and acceptance, which sounds great. But can an atheist and a pantheist and a theist, if I get three of these people, theist, pantheist, and atheist, and say, you are all worshiping the same God, you have equally valid truth claims, is that true? Can that be true? I mean, it sounds good that we all, hold hands and get along and sing kumbaya and all these wonderful things, but can it be true? And why not? Yes, sir.
I think that one will negate the other two.
Why? I agree with you. Specifically why?
Because if you believe one thing, then you, in essence, don't believe the other thing.
Perfect. You know why? I agree with you. Because they have contradictory truth claims. They have contradictory, not just different truth claims, but contradictory truth claims. Theism contradicts atheism. Atheism and theism contradict pantheism. So, let me tell you the difference. I can say, today is, what is today? Friday. And today is cold. These are two differing truth claims, but they're true. But if I say today is Friday in Canada, and today is Monday in Canada, these are not just differing truth claims, they are contradicting truth claims. It is more likely that these two truth claims are both false. It could be Sunday, you see, but it cannot both be true. Just like you cannot say, my name is George and my name is John. It's either George or John. Okay? What is that?
Or neither.
Or neither, exactly, or neither. Very good. So, this is called religious pluralism. Have you heard of the word pluralism? All religions worship the same God. This concept that is very prevalent. I'm gonna, in the States, I'm sure it's equally as prevalent here in Canada. We're all worshiping the same God, and I'm not going to get into politics, but I hear that that's going on. All right, I'm not going to also bother you with this too much, but these are important. This is a grid that tells you the difference between theism, atheism, and pantheism as it relates to God, the world, destiny, authority, truth, Christ, and all of these things. I'll share that with you later. But in the next couple of minutes, I just want to finish with, all right, well, now we understand these worldviews, they're different, they're contradicting one another, and it's important to have a worldview. How can we evaluate and examine the truth of these worldviews? Very quickly. How to test worldviews. There are some invalid criteria we have to beware of. Instinct. This religion seems true to me, or this faith seems true to me instinctively. Feelings. It makes me feel better. Popularity. The majority believes it, so it must be true. Lastly, pragmatic. It works for me, then it must be true. Okay? These are invalid criteria. What's the valid criteria? Number one, coherence. Number two, correspondence. Number three, empiricism. I'll explain 1 minute each one of these. Coherence. The worldview or the system of belief must be rational and coherent. It cannot contradict itself within that system. In other words, if I believe in Christianity, and I believe that the Bible is true and it's the divinely inspired Word of God, then the Bible cannot contain contradictions within that system. The religion cannot contradict itself. The religion cannot tell me love your enemies and hate your enemies in the same time. So that's what coherence means. Correspondence, it should be able to explain reality, why things are the way they are. They have to have explanatory power. Number three, it should be supported by evidence. It should stand the test of falsification. It can be falsified, but it wasn't proven false. So that's empiricism or empirical evidence. These are, in philosophy, these are the three tests of truth. To know what is true and what is falsehood. We can again delve a lot deeper and give you examples of each one of these, but just because we don't have enough time, I will leave you with this one question at the end. Does it matter what you believe? I would like to hear from you. And